today, our objectives for our presentation are going to be to learn how to identify unreliable news. We're going to share online tools to help you fact check or determine the extent of bias in news stories and of authors. We'll provide tips on how to see the whole story on social media. So if you're primarily getting your news from your social media feeds, how you can make sure that you're not being affected there by certain things. And then we'll share online tools and information. This is regarding COVID-19, but we're going to share reliable sources for information on COVID-19, on environmental science and news, and also just general health stuff. So while we go into kind of general fact checking and stuff online, we'll give you specific tools that deal with some specific issues that tend to be very prone to misinformation online. So there's going to be a few terms that I'll be using throughout this presentation. So before we get started, I just want to define those terms in the way that I will be using them. So if I use the term fake news, when we say fake news in this presentation, we're referring to news that deliberately aims to spread false information or hoaxes. This does not include news that might be biased in a certain direction. This is factually inaccurate news. It doesn't mean news that just holds a certain opinion. I'll also be talking a bit about algorithms. So this is the coding which helps determine what you see online. So we hear about algorithms a lot in regards to social media, and that's kind of how we'll be using it. But this is how, when you're using Facebook or you're using Google, how they determine what they show you and in what kind of order they show you posts or news stories or stuff like that. And then we'll also be using the word bias a lot. We use this term to refer to any given person's or system's inability to perceive without preference. So every journalist, every news organization, every website has a bias. It's impossible not to. Some are more and some are less, but it's always the case. So it's something we'll talk about a lot here. Some notes just before we get started on online media in general. So the internet has led to the further democratization of news media, which is great in a lot of ways. This means that we can get access to a lot more perspectives, a lot more information that we wouldn't otherwise have. This also means that anyone can start a website, anyone can post an article, and anyone can post information online. Because of this, it's important that the individuals do the work to determine whether what we are reading is factually correct and unbiased. So because of this widening of opinions, again, great, but it just means that there's less ability to monitor for the actuality of statements and articles, and so we have to do extra work to make sure that things we're reading are properly cited, are properly researched, and don't hold, an extreme bias in one direction or the other. So we'll start by talking about news and news outlets online. So there are a few different types of unreliable news. Some are more obvious than others. Satire being one of them. So there's lots of sites that use humor, irony, to provide exaggerated or false information to comment on current events. These are sites like The Onion is a site, for example. They make kind of joke news articles. Sometimes they can seem very real, but they're unreliable news sources. Extremely biased or hyper-partisan sources, so sources that express a particular point of view and only work to confirm existing biases. These sites rely often on propaganda, information out of context, and opinions presented as fact. We also have something called clickbait. So because of a drive towards ad revenue on news sites and websites, clickbait articles continue to be really prevalent. So these are articles that are generally credible but may use exaggerated or misleading headlines to attract traffic. So you get an article that has this really unbelievable headline and you read the article and it's kind of a super boring article, just trying to drive clicks and traffic to their website. Conspiracy theory and junk science. So these are sources that create and or promote conspiracy theories. And then fake news. These are sources that fabricate information. So it's not based on actual facts. They distort actual news reports or spread generally deceptive content. This is purely for financial gain. So what makes a news source reliable? It's not able to be verified. So if there's no citation to other sources, to where the comments are coming from, where the facts are coming from, that would make it unreliable. And that's usually pretty easy to find. Often articles link out to other articles or to studies or something that you can click on to see where they're sourcing or the sources are in the article. Another thing is they're intentionally appeal to emotions. So unreliable news plays on feelings to ensure you won't be skeptical of its contents. So this is really common. We get it a lot too when you're consuming news through television, because in order to gain viewers, we want a lot of news stations and reporters want to appeal to emotion to make their segments more interesting. But this can mean that can skew views. It can also hide facts behind it because we are so emotionally invested we don't see maybe holes in arguments or stuff like that. Or it comes from a fixed site. Oftentimes, we have a lot of websites. You could go to ABC News website or whatever, but sometimes fake websites pose as real news websites. So if it's actually from a fake website. So if you don't recognize the website URL, if it looks weird or unfamiliar, an example of abcnews.com.co, it's probably unreliable or false. So do look at the actual website. Just like the way sometimes we can get junk emails that look like they're coming from real sources, we also kind of get junk websites that look like legitimate websites, legitimate news sources. They're only built, again, drive traffic, and they may be spewing, fake news or else, hyperbolic kind of news titles just to get clicks and money. Another thing is it has no expert opinions or sources, so this kind of goes along with it's not able to be verified. Reliable articles online, and specifically online, this is not so much that you can do, of course, if you're reading a newspaper, but it will link to sources, and you'll be able to find sources in the article, so kind of embedded links in the text that you can click on to go to another site. It should lead to sources outside of that website. So if you're reading an article, say, on one website, and you click a link where it's referencing this, other story, and it links to its own website of another article, that's something you want to watch out for. Sometimes they do that, that's fine, but there should be at least some links that go outside of the website that are confirmed by other sources, not just the source you're reading. Its claims can't be found elsewhere. So authors of article aren't experts with credentials, or journalists and experts are not consulted. You may not see the author's name at all. Look up the claim or idea in a known reputable news source. If they're not reporting it, it's probably untrue. Which also brings to a point we'll get on later, is it's unique. The one thing about news that's generally we can go it's reliable is it should be able to be found somewhere else. So if there's a news story and it seems totally unbelievable and you can't find those facts anywhere else, you can't find the story anywhere else, it probably means that it's not true, or that it has facts that are maybe made up. Just because if it's true, it's not going to be unique. The story will be replicated in other news sources if it isn't an accurate claim. So again, how we find out if a news source is unreliable, this is a great chart just to kind of summarize what we went through. Consider the source, click away from the story to investigate the site. You can also look at the website itself, its mission, and its contact info. Read non-headlines can be outrageous in an effort to get clicks. What's the story? So just make sure you read the whole story. Don't form opinion based on just headline. Check the date. Reposting old news stories doesn't mean they're relevant to current events. This is a really big thing when articles get posted on social media or online. Check the date. Facts change, the story changes as we learn more information about, news. Are telling you that it might change. So even if something's old, doesn't mean that wasn't necessarily accurate at the time, but it may no longer be accurate and reflect the actual situation. Is it a joke? So is it coming from a satirical website? Sometimes these things can be hard to tell, but if it's really hyperbolic, if it's outlandish, usually that points to humor. Check the author. You can do a quick search of the author online. You can see they've posted other articles, where they're posting. Are they credible? What are their credentials? Supporting sources. So, like I said, click on those links that are embedded in the text and see where they go and see what they say. Check your own biases. So consider your own beliefs and how they can affect your judgment of a story too, right? And then ask experts. Always, if you're really unsure about something, you can ask a librarian or consult a fact-checking website. So we'll go through some of those fact-checking websites in a second. But there are sources to be able to check these things if they're just not true. What makes news reliable then? So the publication has a reputation for fair reporting. Of course, in this day and age, it's kind of like war news outlets. Everyone is kind of bringing down other news outlets' reputation, so this can be harder to do. If it generally has a reputation for fair reporting from multiple angles, from people who may be further right or further left or more center, generally has a good backing behind it, then that's something to look at. It relies on facts, so this is where they would be sourcing and citing out a lot, and using, if it's talking about something like global warming, it's relying on a lot of scientific data, on studies and stuff like that. And like before, it's not unique. You should be able to find these facts, these stories elsewhere. If it's the only place on the internet that's posting the story, it's probably not true. So, what are these checking resources we were talking about? So we're reading an article and you're just not sure if what you're reading is accurate or if it may be kind of blurred by bias or something like that. A few websites that we're going to highlight now that are really great fact-checking resources. So Snopes, this is one of the original fact-checking websites. It deals a lot with like urban legends, news stories, and different internet memes that may be popping up. Politifact is created and run by Pulitzer-winning editors and reporters at the Tampa Bay Times. This deals more with, of course, political sphere, but fact-checking politics. And the Washington Post fact-check is run by the Washington Post. Washington Post is known to be more center-ish bipartisan news source, so that's a good fact-checker as well. But we'll check them out and see if they work. So first, we'll look at Snopes. So this is the Snopes website. When you go on it at first, they'll kind of have top headlines and different things that are really popular and ideas that are really kind of running around the internet top. So here they have, are Ukrainians selling used Russian tanks on eBay? That is false. Apparently that's going around the internet. They'll have stuff like that. You can also go down and you can see any sort of editor's choice, things that they think are popular or they want to highlight. You can also see latest articles. So latest articles here on fact-checking stuff. But what you can do is you can use this to search something, right? So if you want to search for a specific fact, you can do it here. If I want to search generally stuff in Ukraine right now, it will give all these articles about fact-checking things. We can also look at their just recent fact checks. So these, again, are just popular things that are coming up. Things you're looking for, or you can look at the latest. They're kind of fact-checking things. But it is a great site for checking facts there. Politifact here. This also just fact-checks articles, but it does it more about political things. You can see here, we can go to the menu, and you can get different additions to this. So you can check state editions of fact-checking on different issues. You can check fact-checking on different people, on different media outlets, and you can look at their kind of truth-o-meter. So click here. We'll see the latest true fact checks. So it's things that different people have said, how true they are, right? And we can see Pants on Fire would be their least true facts. So apparently the Russian embassy in Canada, this. Right, so you can go and get really untrue facts here. Like I said, you can also go into specific topics. So say we went into environment. You can see all their fact checks. So we'll see for like highly kind of shared facts, quote unquote facts online. You can see how true they are. So we'll see mostly true here. We can see the effects, and it just shows statements from political figures and what they've said, right? Or from different popular sources and what they've said on certain issues. So a good website to check here, specific facts. And then we have the Washington Post fact checker. And so this is actually, it's on its own site. It's just a subset of the WashingtonPost.com website. And again, it will fact check kind of, this is again highly political in terms of like what they check a lot. And it's also highly Americanized. So Snopes sometimes is a bit more broad. Of course, Politifact is a bit more broad. Washington Post is very American-centric, so makes sense here, but just it's very. You can go down and see kind of analysis of things saying, so we can see fact-checking for the speech on Ukraine, stuff like that. They're just checking popular articles. It's sometimes harder to check kind of more niche articles that you may be finding on websites that are not as popular. But at the same time, again, if it's a website that's not as reliable, if it's very niche or it's very specific, chances are it's true, or that it's kind of maybe not the most reliable. So those are some fact-checking resources, some fact-checking websites. Now, there's also bias-checking resources, which is can sometimes go kind of line in line with fact-checking. Is, of course, different. So we'll look at two sites here. We'll look at All Sides. This site offers a well-regarded bias rating system. It's intended to help news consumers see and understand the different perspectives that they're getting. And the Media Bias Fact Checker, MBFC for short, is an independent site. It's dedicated to educating people on media bias and shedding light on effective news practices. So we'll look at All Sides first. But this is a really great balance to it. So sometimes we have websites that maybe aren't necessarily factually accurate, but they're super biased in this direction. So they may not make absolute falsehoods, but they may distort facts or contextualize them in ways that make them fit their view better, right, to fit their perspective better. So what they do here is they do top stories as well. And what they'll do on stories is they will maybe put the headline, and they'll link to news articles with different kind of points of view. So for this first story, for example, it's more than 1 million flee Ukraine amid Russia attacks. You can click here, and you can get an article from the left. You can click here, and you can get an article that's from the center. And you can click here, and you can get an article that's from sources further to the right. So it's really helpful in understanding, one, what news source, what your choice news source aligns with, and also get different perspectives on how different people are viewing the issue. So again, we can see more things, different headlines, and how they're being viewed from different sources. And then if you scroll down further on their main page, you'll see just general news from the left and middle. And it's just interesting in itself to look at kind of one issue and see what the headline is or kind of what the first few sentences of the article from each thing. They also do what they have as their perspective blog. You can see it here, but it's also there. And it's people who actually work at All Sides, and they have people who work there who are from all kind of spheres of the spectrum, from the left to the right, and they kind of talk about their opinions and their perspectives on things, so you can see it in a more kind of condensed way, how these different sides of the spectrum will be handling the topic. But what you could also do is up here on this top bar, we have these different things. Media bias is really great. So this is a general tool that allows you to see how biased specific sources are. So this is not always the case. You may have someone who's maybe further right writing for a more centered or left-wing newspaper on an opinion piece. The New York Times may be a bit further left, but but sometimes they have opinion pieces that are written by people further right, stuff like that. So it's not always necessarily here. You may have a journalist themselves who's further left than the news source or vice versa. But they have a system. So each article they'll do a media bias rating for, and this is their system they use. It's pretty straightforward. You can see that there's left, right, and you can see all these different websites and how far left or right they are. So this is their bias rating system. If you want to know how they rate their media bias and stuff like that, they also have certain things to say. They say, center doesn't mean better. No opinion, whether it's further left or further center or further right, doesn't necessarily mean it's better. So it doesn't mean because something's a more centered view that it may be more factually accurate than something that's super left viewed or something that's super conservatively viewed. It just means how it falls in the political spectrum. It's really dependent on how that journalist, that news source uses their facts and actually cites their opinions. You also have this media bias chart right here, and this kind of shows you some of the big hitters. It's just like a little infographic, and you can see how they kind of generally view things. So it's also important to know that, again, all sides is generally, as you can see, a lot of these news sources are American news sources. So this is on makes sense, but is it on American spectrum of left to right politics, which may be slightly different if you're in a different country. So if you're looking at the BBC or if you're looking at different websites or news sources from different countries, their version of being left may be further skewed left or further skewed right, dependent. And then you have fact check biases as well. So this actually reveals the bias of fact checking sites. So All Sides Fact Check reveals the media bias of top fact checkers such as Snopes, Politifact, and factcheck.com. So you can see that if when we were looking at before those fact checking sites, so one of the ones we went through was the Snopes one. That leans a bit left in terms of fact checking, their fact checking system. But you can see other ones. Check Your Facts in the BBC are pretty centered. CNN's fact checking site is quite left. Breitbart's fact checking site is quite right. And this does nothing to do with the legitimacy of the facts they're checking or how accurate they are. It just means how biased they are to one opinion over the other. But like I said, it's equally important to consider not just the facts when consuming media, but the bias, because that can mean that even though some things may be factually accurate, how they're viewing it may affect how they present it. So if a fact is a fact, it shouldn't have a positive or negative association with it. And what bias is when positive or negative or some sort of perspective is placed on that fact. We also have media bias fact check. This site, because it's kind of individually run, you can get like a lot of ads on it, which is a bit annoying. So you'll see there's like lots of ads that pop up, but it's also a great source for checking bias as well. You can kind of see this whole thing up here, but and again, it just kind of lists the bias. It's just a great way to get a second opinion too. Again, when you're doing fact checking, those can still be biased. When you're checking bias checking sites, those can still be biased to a certain idea of what that spectrum of left to right looks like. So we can see here that they list. They also have kind of a wider range. They cover a lot more smaller websites. So like the CBC Seattle local news station they put in here. So they really cover everything in here in terms of how left or right or centered it is. And so you can kind of just refer to these lists. So say you click on an article and you're just not sure off of Facebook and it's kind of coming from a slightly random site. You're not really sure if it's left center, right center, or if it's completely conspiracy or pseudoscience. You come here and they have a huge, long list of sites, and sites that may seem kind of not, in terms of their titles, not hugely alarming, like Daily Health Post. I probably wouldn't, if I saw that, I might not think this seems like really so generic, the title, but apparently that's a pseudoscience website, so stuff like this is really important. to know too. And again, it's also just great to go and see like what media are you consuming and where are they biased towards. Again, there's nothing wrong with having your opinion and having your bias. It's just important to know where you stand and understand when you are being fed information that works to only solidify an opinion that you already hold, or whether it's challenging your opinions of stuff, right? I think it's important to always know all sides of the people's opinions on things. That way you can also just feel more solidly in how you feel about something. If you understand other perspectives, then you can feel more solid in what your perspective is on it and what your stance on the subject matter is or news story, right? All right, so that's to do with, we just did with kind of news sources, news websites, and now we'll talk about social media, because a big way of how we consume news these days is through social media. Every major figure and political figure in every country has a Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You'll be seeing that a lot of that during the conflict right now in Ukraine, the Ukrainian Twitter has been very active, like the actual country. So they're disseminating information through social media as well. Major figures are disseminating information quickly through social media without having to go through traditional channels of news outlets. So it's a whole other sphere for you to deal with. So one thing that's really important to know is about bots online. And a lot of social media sites are getting better-ish about dealing with bots, but this has been a big thing and it will continue to be a big thing. So bots are basically software that create fake profiles on social media sites to disseminate information. It could be fake news, it could just be a really skewed, biased news, and we've heard about these a lot. But the bot is a software application basically that runs automated tasks over the internet. Some are helpful, some are malicious. So bots can easily be used in information campaigns to spread misinformation. They're everywhere. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're in the comment threads of YouTubes and on news articles. So it's important to know how to identify a bot online. You'll go to an article and you'll see like a million comments on it, and there'll be a lot of people with these really strong opinions to a certain degree, and so you'll think a lot of people have this opinion. It could be that, or there could be a lot of bots, so it's just important to know the difference. So, identifying bots online. Real people sharing real stories will have full accounts. So if someone's posting a lot of stories and they seem really far-fetched and you're not sure about their profile, just click on their profile. If they have like photos of themselves and photos of themselves with friends, and they have what looks like a normal amount of followers, and they engage largely with their friends' content, so they're not just posting, they're also engaging with other people on their social media. That's a good sign that they're real. The opposite is often true for bots. They will lack information. They'll have really generic profile pictures or no profile picture at all. Sometimes it's a well-known landmark. Sometimes it's like looks like a stock photo of someone that they found on Google. You can also look at activity, so the frequency of their posting and the success of the posts are an indicator to you. For example, you might come across an account with only one post and no followers yet, whose post has 1,000 shares. That would be suspicious, because that means that's probably a bot account, and those shares are probably from other bots accounts that are running the same story and trying to disseminate that false story or news. You can also look at their profiles and look at the content that they're sharing. So people that create bots have an agenda, whether that's to drive traffic to a website to generate income or to spread political disinformation. So are they posting a lot about the same thing? Are they really on a one-track kind of goal to get out this one story over and over again? Or are they diversifying? Are they posting news stories and then are they posting a personal comment about something in their life? Or is it all political? Is it all driven in one direction? You can also see stolen photos. It's also not uncommon for bots to steal profile photos. So a quick test to see if this is like a real photo, if they've stolen it off someone else's profile, is you can run their profile picture, save it, and then run it through Google Image Finder or Google Search by Image, and it will show you where else that image appears online. and it may appear on 5 different Facebook pages, and then you know that that's a stolen photo that's been used, that someone's replicated someone else's profile on their account to make it look real, but in fact they are a bot and they just create this fake profile to troll people. So that's bots. We've been hearing less about them lately, but they're still very active. They're often, again, used in political campaigns to spread information, to spread it quickly, to kind of just put as much of it out there as possible because something will stick. Now, we also have to talk about bias and the algorithms, the bias of algorithms on our social media. So Facebook, and when I say Facebook, this also kind of applies to Instagram, though Instagram is not so much a source for news as Facebook is. This applies heavily to Facebook, somewhat to Twitter, but Facebook probably more so. But yeah, social media sites, like I said, are a great way to access information and find news. They give us such instant access. They give us instant access to the opinions of big players in politics or in conflict or in certain issues. So we can get access and we can get knowledge straight from the source. But our social media feeds often use algorithms, and they determine what we want to see. So because of this, they can turn into an echo chamber, only feeding you news you already know and opinions you already hold, right? So when you're on Facebook, depending on what you like, on what content, what posts you engage with, what you comment on, or Facebook will then start feeding you things that are similar, because they want you to engage. They want to keep you online as long as possible. And so to do that, they want to show you things that they think that you'll engage with, that you'll enjoy seeing. If you scroll through 5 posts and you don't like anything, you go, I'm bored now, and you leave. That's not good for them. So they want to change it so they only see things that they think you'll engage with. Meaning, they can put you into that echo chamber, right? You're only seeing things that you want to see. You're only getting opinions and fed news stories that you want to engage with. So you may not see the other side of it. You may not get, if you're super far left, you may not get the posts unless you like to comment and go into debates with people on their social media. That is a great form of engagement for Facebook too. But if you're skipping over it, they're not going to show you that stuff. So you can get into a bit of an echo chamber there. It's also important then to understand the policies and practices of social media sites on facts and news. So though some social media sites are making strides to provide assistance to their users who want to double-check the accuracy of posts by their users, others do not really have adequate measures or no measures in place to protect users against sharing false information. Often these practices that they do to try to kind of help the accuracy of posts comes after a lot of complaint from people. So someone posts something, anything about COVID-19, they always have like that little link and at the bottom that links to like the CDC or some sort of health website that is supposed to provide accurate facts about COVID-19. So they do stuff like that. But for the most part, they don't really take things down. They're inaccurate. They leave them up. And they'll probably the more popular someone is, the more they may monitor their posting. If someone's just a regular person, they're not going to be monitoring them as much. But yeah, there's not a lot being done, so it's really important that we take those steps ourselves to check things because, again, social media sites rely on us staying on the site as long as possible. And if something's interesting, regardless if it's true or false to them, sometimes it just doesn't matter to them. They just want you on the site, period, right? So take a look at the policies just so we're aware of them. So the Facebook policy. So in June of 2020, Facebook announced they would start putting notices on certain political posts. So this is just in several countries and regions. Facebook works with third-party fact-checking organizations that are certified through the International Fact-Checking Network to spot and review the type of content and take action. However, posts on Facebook by anyone still do need to be factually accurate. Always be willing to double-check the post before sharing. And if you want this leads to Facebook's fact-checking policy and their policy on taking posts down. So this gets updated frequently. So if you ever want to read more about it, you can click here on this. It leads you to here. And you can see what they're doing to fact-check. Right? And that would be true of Instagram as well. Facebook, now Meta, owns Instagram, so this will be accurate among both of those things. Twitter's policy. So Twitter has implemented a policy, as I've said, to specifically posting with COVID-19 and voting. So whenever someone posts currently about COVID-19 or if there's an election and they're posting about voting, they put that link at the bottom to be accurate information or to a trusted source on voting information or COVID information. So if someone who has 2 followers posts something about COVID-19 or false information about voting, they may not put those links on them or markers on them because they don't see them as a threat. They normally only do this to people who have large followings, who, if they lied about something, that information can get really disseminated farther, and it might be more dangerous. So there's still a risk of unmarked and factually incorrect content on Twitter, though they're a bit better than Facebook on this. It's still out there. Additionally, what content gets marked is up to human discretion, meaning who gets checked and who doesn't is not without its biases as well, right? If the people who work at Twitter are leaned in a certain political direction or another, they may decide that they fact check people on a certain spectrum more than others. That's just human error. I'm sure they try not to. I'm sure they're trying to be unbiased, but this is done by human discretion. So everything that's happening is going to have some respect of bias to it. What these sites that I showed you that are fact-checking and bias-checking sites are just trying to correct for that. But again, everything's biased. Everyone has their personal bias, so we always have to account for that. And this is also true for search engines. Google is biased, and it's biased actually, in fact, like you. So search engines are human-made, right? Like I said, like every other website, and so they're susceptible to the biases of their creators. But they're also susceptible to your biases, just like Facebook is. And that goes here. When you use a search engine, it gives you the results of things you want to see based on algorithms. This depends on what search engine you're using and kind of what relationship you have to that search engine. So for example, if you use Google a lot and you have a Google account that you're signed into on the device you're doing it on, it has more information on you as a user, as a searcher. So based on what you've searched in the past, based on where you live, what region you live in, it's going to skew that information to you, right? Sites like DuckDuckGo, which is a privatized kind of search system, it doesn't do that same kind of data collection on you. It will be less biased, but again, it's still biased by its creators. So it shows you what it thinks you want to see. The way you ask questions on a search engine will also impact what you see. So it's important to consider that this is embedded in your search terms when you're accessing new search engines, right? And just to kind of wrap this up too, it's important to remember that we're online. When we are reading news online, that everything is about, a lot of things are about traffic and how many clicks and views an article gets. News sources want people to visit their websites. They want them to see their articles. And so they try to make them as appealing as possible. What that means is that can change how things are written. So what we know is that opinions drive more traffic than facts do. Because of this, and because there's such an increasingly overcrowded field of journalism, opinion pieces are the ones that are most controversial, tend to provide more traffic to sites. And so they get pushed a lot more. There's a lot more opinion pieces out there than there ever has been before. So don't be conscious and don't presume anything to be unbiased. And the most reliable news source is considered an opinion piece. At the very top of the article, they'll be like under the title, they'll usually say this is opinion. And that may just be because we're more conscious of what is considered opinion and what is considered maybe more factual reporting. But opinions drive more traffic. There are more opinion articles. Just know that when you're reading an article, even though it's providing facts and even though it's linking to sources, whatever that opinion is still does skew what's being written and how it's being written. Like I said before, check the URL because just like when you get emails from fake senders, you can be on fake websites that are posing on other websites. So do be careful of that. I've been on a website before that looked exactly like CNN website. It said CNN, I looked up and it actually wasn't. So check things like that. And as we talked about before, click the links when you're reading articles. Just so to give you context of what I mean by that, say we have this piece right here, I highlighted it. It's this. When something's highlighted in blue, that links to another article. So you want to click on that, right? So this says, many Africans resisted and fought against European colonization laws. European empires hardened. This is leading to some sort of factual check of that historic piece that they're referring to. So if you want to check that, you can read it and make sure that that is accurate to what they're basically summarizing there in that one sentence. Going down more, so as I said, I wanted to highlight a few key issues that are really susceptible to misinformation these days and reliable sources for them. So when we were talking about reliable COVID-19 information, of course, there's a CDC and stuff like this. I really do trust this one, but the Johns Hopkins site, so coronavirus.jhu.edu, they will provide some of the most up-to-date information on COVID-19. And they have a free online short course for better understanding the virus. So you can check that out if you're looking for the most up-to-date, reliable information on the still persisting pandemic. There's also Worldometer. So this is great to get raw numbers on COVID-19 cases around the world. So they have specifically their coronavirus meter, but this is just, right? You can see a global, you can see active cases, closed cases, and go down and see this by country. So it's just raw information. But Worldometer, it provides two things. It provides that and population. Society media, so you can see this is constantly going up the current world population. This is just raw facts and numbers of things. So we can see forest loss this year, it just went up by 1, apparently. CO2 emissions, food, water, health, all sorts of things, just pure raw data here. Environmental information, again, this is also hugely affected by misinformation, but important to have good sources. So the World Meteorological Organization statement on global climate is from 2020. And you can see their kind of report and statement each year. It's like a packet that you can go through. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So this is the UN panel. So this is the panel consisted of multiple countries. So it's not just one, party's opinion on it. This is the work of a huge group, a huge body of people. So you can look at this as well. Report, climate change. You can see the 6th assessment report here. And then the Skepticals is a great source for getting the truth of the climate crisis and understanding and debunking skepticism about it. So this is one is focusing more on when things are kind of questioned, why they're questioned, kind of getting down into the nitty-gritty of where these different perspectives are coming from and how much of them are skewed, how much of them are actually based in fact. And then I have one for general health information. This is a big one. Daily Med is a great site for reliable information on medications and drugs. It's a source from the FDA. So if you go to Daily Med, you want to learn more about a specific drug that you might be taking. Let's put one in. We'll just put it in. Let's see one here I can think of. You can get all the information on it. Warning about if these are like heavily abused drugs, it can turn into that. All sorts of information on specific drugs. As I said, Johns Hopkins for the COVID-19 information. Johns Hopkins is just a great site for health information in general. So is Mayo Clinic. They can provide really great information on conditions. So again, learn more about maybe a condition that you've just been diagnosed with, this is a great place to read up. Of course, you always want to consult your doctor, but if you just want to have a better understanding, maybe you don't have access to your doctor to ask every question every second of the day, don't make any decisions by this, but it can make you more informed about things, and then you can present those questions to trusted medical professionals, but it gives you the opportunity to also, educate yourself on maybe your health situation or loved one's health situation. And then the NIH Office of Dietary Supplements. This has extensive information on nutrient and things like vitamins and supplements. So if you're a big person who takes a lot of vitamins and supplements, this is just a great way. You can kind of get duped a lot by thinking you need to take a lot of different supplements or stuff like that. So this is a great way to kind of get fact sheets. So fact sheets on like probiotics, of course, those are super popular. What these things do and what they mean. When we get really up about like probiotics are amazing for gut health or whatever it is, this will break down exactly what probiotics are and really what their benefits are and maybe where promises are being made that are grander than what they can actually provide. So that's a great site. But yeah, there's all sorts of sites like these too on other subjects. Those are just a few to highlight. But of course, if you'd like to learn this lesson with Cyber Seniors Mentor, you want to be able to get help navigating those websites, any of those websites, you can always call us at Cyber Seniors. Our phone number is 844-217-3057. We do our tech drop-in on Thursday, 2 to 3 p.m. So if you have any questions you want to ask them over Zoom, come visit us there.